I'm Craig Nash, Senior Editor at Good Faith Media.
And I'm Hayoung Park, a social work and theology student.
We are co-hosts of the Good Faith Bible Studies podcast, where we explore and discuss the weekly biblical text and lessons found in Good Faith magazine.
We'll also share ideas for leading group discussions on each week's text and lesson.
Let's dive in. This week's passage is from Exodus 14, verses 10 through 31, and we are going to do this a little different. We're going to read the first part of it and then kind of give a synopsis of the end. Verse 10 begins with this. As Pharaoh drew near, the Israelites looked back, and there were the Egyptians advancing on them. In great fear, the Israelites cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? What have you done to us, bringing us out of Egypt? Is this not the very thing we told you in Egypt? Let us alone and let us serve the Egyptians? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than die in the wilderness." But Moses said to the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm and see the deliverance that the Lord will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You have only to keep still." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why do you cry out to me? Tell the Israelites to go forward. But you lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the Israelites may go into the sea onto the dry ground. Then I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will go in after them. And so I will gain glory for myself over Pharaoh and all his army, his chariots and his chariot drivers. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord when I have gained glory for myself over Pharaoh, his chariots, and his chariot drivers." And the passage goes on from verses 19 all the way through the end of the chapter in verses 31. We're going to skip over it a little bit because hopefully you read the story. Hopefully you've watched The Prince of Egypt, or at least you know the story because it is a central story to the story of us and the story of the world. So with that said, Hayoung, what are your initial thoughts on this passage?
Yeah. Well, I think one key theme that's interesting is like this relationship between what God does and what humans do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Mary Alice in her study also really brings this out of like human action and divine power were working together, but all of that is hinged on the trust that is so important. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes God is calling us to make steps into places that we don't know if there's a step. We don't know if there is guaranteed stability in that next thing that we're being called to do. This is slightly different, but I think it's relevant of like when I'm reading through that second part of the passage that we didn't get to read in our reading, it's using this word, this language of like God is taking water that was in one place, putting it in another place, and that leaves dry ground. And the Hebrew scholar in me is like, oh, this is Genesis 1 language. This is the like specific verbiage that Genesis 1 is using when it's describing God bringing order to creation.
The waters into
right.
And another.
Which I don't think is an accident. And I think that really it underscores this idea of like, even in this moment of chaos, of pure terror, God is still creator and is always in the business of like bringing order to the world for the sake of caring for his beloved creation.
Yeah, it's almost it's just a mirror of what God does in creation before humans were created, because that's in the primeval history of primordial. Yeah, that story is pre-humans, and it's almost like God is saying, "Okay, I'm going to do this again, but for your benefit."
Yeah, and it's like Genesis, like the creation story did not stop there.
Exactly.
It's continuing to happen.
Oh, that's great.
And this story of Exodus is just one.
God is always creating for our good. One of the things I noticed, and again, we talk a lot about how you and I have been in church all our lives, and we've read these passages over and over. But in this kind of early section where the people are complaining, Moses is kind of giving them instructions, and and he tells them, "Do not be afraid," and we'll maybe talk about that in the next segment on the lesson. But then he says in verse 14, "The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to keep still." And then I was reading this slowly, and then I kind of chuckled when verse 15 came, when the Lord speaks, and the Lord said to Moses, "Why do you cry out to me? tell the Israelites to go forward. So it's like almost like Moses spoke out of turn almost. And Moses thought, okay, it's going to be okay. Just calm down. Just be still, and God will do something. And God steps in and says, no, don't be still.
Yeah.
Move forward.
Right. He's like, get up. What are you doing?
Yeah, get up. I also, as you were talking, think, and this is just what we do when these stories become so familiar, is there is something within me every time I read this story that thinks, don't you know that water is about to, that God's going to part the waters? But all they knew is there was a river in front of them and an army behind them. So for them, moving forward actually meant death. And so, there's some ways we can talk about how this mirrors the story of Jesus and the story that we learn about throughout Scripture, that true life comes through sacrifice.
Yeah. That not to trivialize it, but that reminds me of when I did ministry with college students. Oftentimes I'd grab lunch or coffee with them, and they'd tell me about a new development in their life, whether it's like relationship drama, or they failed a test, or had an argument with a parent, and I remember being in that stage and being like, this is the end. Like,
oh, yeah,
I'm going to walk forward and there's going to be a cliff and I'm going to fall and die.
Exactly.
And it was always such an honor to sit in that moment with them and be like, no, you're going to keep going and you're going to find that there's a life on the other end of this.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just reminds me a lot of that.
As someone who's also worked with college students in my past, you're probably far more grace-filled in that because often what I hear or what I do when I hear this, I kind of see, going back to knowing the future a little bit, I know where their stories are going to take them, and I kind of want to tell them. For me, it comes more like in the college freshman who comes in and they're very fundamentalist and they're hardcore. And I just want to say, listen, you're going to take a sophomore philosophy class and then you're going to go back on everything you said, but you're going to try to figure out a way to make it look like you never believed that sort of thing.
Right.
The tough thing for me is, well, first of all, knowing I don't know what their story's going to be, even though I think I do. But second of all, if I have kind of an idea, to know that they have to walk forward in that without knowing what's coming next. And we have to do the same, even though we have this hope of of the future and what God will bring us through. We still have to take that first step.
Yeah. I mean, it's truly the only way out is through.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit more when we come back and speak about Mary Alice's lesson. This week's study in Good Faith Bible Studies, again, is written by Mary Alice Birdwhistle, minister in Kentucky, someone who has put a lot of thought into this, and she's given us another excellent reflection on the Exodus story for the second week in Lent. Your thoughts on her lesson?
One of the themes that she really pulls out, and I said this in the last time we just talked about it, is this play between what humans do and what God is doing, and how it's like a dance. And I don't know that she says this explicitly, but I think the thing that holds those pieces together is trust in God for us. And then obviously God, knows everything. But this study was a really helpful reminder to me of just how important trust is, but also what trust feels like. Trust does not feel like guaranteed stability in every single step you take with that entity, whether that be God or another person. Trust is something you do, and then the relational tools necessary to navigate the next step come with the trust almost. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's great. I'm just looking at the lesson again, and one of the things that was really powerful that she wrote about was Harriet Tubman's connection to this story. Harriet Tubman's nickname is Mother Moses, and so this story is very much her story, and I just loved how she made that connection. The other thing that Mary Alice does is she really focuses on this theme of moving forward. And it kind of has echoes of this. I believe it was an earlier study we did, and I can't remember exactly which one it was, but this idea of doing the next right thing and figuring out what that is. I actually heard someone very recently describe his life in the past few years, just dealing with all the injustice, with the whole world on fire. He had to figure out what is what is my tallest fire to put out?
Yeah.
And we can't do everything, but we can take this kind of next step.
Yeah.
And this reminded me of probably my favorite writer, Anne Lamott, in her book, Traveling Mercies. The first kind of, 50, 60 pages of her book is her narrating her life of faith. And it's called Lily Pads. She uses this image of a dancer on stage, and I think she names a famous dancer. And this thought that this kind of image of the light, she steps into the light, and kind of what you're saying, it's kind of this dance between God and humans of God is providing the light. We have to step into it, and we have to figure out, okay, where's the light going to be? But then the light has to figure out where we're going to be. And it's like a partnership.
Yeah. It's a two-way street.
Yeah, exactly. And then the lily pads kind of piece, she says she's seen her life of faith as jumping onto a lily pad, but not knowing the lily pad was going to emerge until she jumped out. So another excellent lesson from Mary Alice. We'll return with some small group ideas.
Before we discuss some ideas for leading a group through this week's text and lesson, we want you to know that we have created a leader's guide to help you prepare.
The leader's guide contains an overview of the lesson, some highlights to focus on, and several discussion questions for your group to go through.
For those questions, you can focus on one or all of them or any combination. Also, feel free to adapt them for your particular group's needs.
The leader's guide can be found at goodfaithmedia.org. So as you think about your small groups and, ways you can talk through this, one thing we didn't talk about that really kind of opens up the passage is this idea of the people of God complaining about not being enslaved like they were before. And so that's kind of almost we see it as a humorous part of the story. But I think that would be a good kind of conversation piece to ask members, hey, have you ever been in one of those like in-between times when you were moved out of bondage? Obviously, bondage is very relevant, very relative, because you didn't know what was next. You longed for that situation of bondage that was bad in so many ways, but at least it was certain.
Yeah.
And then just kind of the converse to that is tell stories of times when you've just walked forward into faith, when you didn't know it was before you, but you did, and God was faithful, whether you knew it at the time or not.
Yeah, like reading yourself into the story in some ways. Yeah, I think for me, I see that a lot of this week is centering around whether we trust God or not, and taking that step onto that next lily pad requires us to know who it is that we're seeking, who it is we're following after. And so I think this story can help us to ask each other, what does it suggest about God? What does it suggest about God's character that he is one to lead the Israelites in this particular way? Because I think we can only trust God when we know who God is and become more familiar with his character so that we can also be known too.
Yeah, that's perfect. Mary Alice ends like this, and I think this is a good way to end. Even when the path seems impossible, may we stand firm, and may we find the courage to wade into the waters, trusting that God will lead the way. And we're looking forward to exploring this story more next week.
I'm Hayoung Park.
And I'm Craig Nash.
And you've been listening to the Good Faith Bible Studies podcast from Good Faith Media.
Our music comes from Pond 5.
Each weekly lesson can be found in Good Faith magazine.
You can also sign up to receive a free digital leader's guide.
Learn about how to receive both these resources at goodfaithmedia.org.
There you can find daily news and opinion, various podcasts from our Good Faith Media team and partners, and information about the initiatives that help guide our work.
So visit us at goodfaithmedia.org, and we'll be back next week with another installment of the Good Faith Bible Studies podcast.